We do have a bunch of primary elections today, but last night, on the eve of several of the last primaries, the Associated Press called the Democratic nomination for Hillary Clinton. Many Bernie supporters saying this was a tactic to suppress voter turnout today. We will talk about that. The Associated Press saying, well, listen, if you look at the pledged delegates that Hillary Clinton has already earned, and you combine that with what we now estimate to be the superdelegate support that she has surpassed the required 2,383 combined delegates. In fact, 2,384, the total number estimated by the Associated Press. The New York Times quickly jumped on it, also saying that, hey, the Associated Press has declared Hillary Clinton the presumptive nominee by reaching out to superdelegates who had not announced which candidate they would be supporting, and confirming that enough were backing Hillary Clinton to get her to that magic number of 2383. So what do we think about this? I mean, on the one hand, superdelegates have not voted. So to call this clinching the nomination would be wrong, but that is not the language that the Associated Press used, at least in their sort of explanation article that they published after. On the other hand, the numbers don't look good for Bernie Sanders, obviously, but the question of timing has been brought up, and motive right before multiple primaries, which, while very unlikely to change the eventual outcome of this race, could, Lewis, make people say, oh, I heard yesterday that Hillary won, so I'm not going to vote today. That is a legitimate concern, although whether it could really change the eventual impact of this, less certain about that.
And in that way, this is really irresponsible. I guess we come to expect that from corporate media and the like. But it's pretty juicy stuff, and I understand why they did it.
Well, the key thing is that nothing official happened, right? Yesterday, enough people who don't vote until July told the Associated Press that they would be supporting Hillary Clinton, and the AP published a sort of explanation article afterwards. Here's a quote from that article from the AP explaining this. Clinton is now the presumptive nominee because according to our count, she has enough delegates backing her candidacy to win the nomination. AP will not call her the nominee, or as Newt Gingrich used to say, the nominee, until she reaches that milestone in Philadelphia next month, when the party's delegates formally cast their vote at the convention. The Sanders campaign almost immediately putting out a statement about this, which I will also show you, saying it is unfortunate that the media, in a rush to judgment, are ignoring the Democratic National Committee's clear statement that it is wrong to count the votes of superdelegates before they actually vote at the convention this summer. Secretary Clinton does not have and will not have the requisite number of pledged delegates to secure the nomination. She will be dependent on superdelegates who do not vote until July 25 and who can change their minds between now and then. They include more than 400 superdelegates who endorsed Secretary Clinton 10 months before the first caucuses and primaries and long before any other candidate was in the race. Hillary Clinton campaign also commenting, tweeting. They also are not ready to call this, saying, we're flattered, AP, but we've got primaries to win. California, Montana, New Mexico, North Dakota, New Jersey, South Dakota, vote tomorrow. It's interesting that when even the declared winner is saying it's too soon to declare themselves a winner, but I think this is political posturing, Lewis, she also doesn't want to dissuade people from voting.
Yeah, and this is the appropriate response. This is what you have to say. You aren't going to accept the nomination bestowed upon you by the Associated Press.
Right.
So, yeah, okay.
However, the interesting element that is now being added to this as we get ready, as people are already voting across the U.S. today in a variety of states, a White House source has said to CNN that President Obama is eager to get going in campaigning for Hillary Clinton. So we may see an endorsement from President Obama sooner than later. And some Bernie Sanders fans are angry about the possibility of an endorsement from President Obama before Bernie Sanders even formally exits the race. But I want to remind you that in 2008, Bernie Sanders endorsed President Obama before Hillary Clinton formally exited the race, coming 2 days after President Obama sort of on paper secured what appeared to be the required number of delegates and superdelegates. So I think that criticism would be hypocritical unless you were also critical of Bernie Sanders back in 2008. Of course, many Sanders supporters quite young in 2008.
That is true. I don't think a president should, a former president, fine. I don't think a president who's in office should endorse a candidate.
Well, hold on a second. At any point or before they are the official nominee? I mean, it's traditional.
At any point. Just stay out of it.
Really? I mean, Lewis, it's traditional that the president...
I don't give a you know what about tradition.
You just say the sitting president should not be involved in at all in the election that will determine their replacement.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
And on what basis?
And I also believe that there should be one term served. It can be longer if you'd like. I mean, a sitting president should also not be running for re-election.
You say one term and that's it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well,
Yeah.
Look at what happens in Congress, where you're up for re-election every 2 years. Essentially, 40% of your time in office is spent campaigning.
Oh, believe me, I know. And the similar rule should be applied to Congress.
Interesting. All right, send me your thoughts on this. Term limits, we've discussed term limits before, a number of interesting reasons that to me are relatively compelling to impose term limits at different levels of elected office.